Welcome back. You're watching MSNBC. The vicious inter-party feud between President Trump and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is escalating to a whole other level this morning. This extraordinary report in the New York Times says the two have not spoken to each other in weeks. And then there's this quote. Mr. McConnell has privately expressed uncertainty that Mr. Trump will be able to salvage his administration after a series of summer crises. I want to get my panel to weigh in. Jason Johnson, Kate Kelly, okie doke. Now, Mitch McConnell's spokesperson denying the New York Times story, but did say this. They have a lot of shared goals: tax reform, infrastructure, funding the government, not defaulting on debt, passing the defense authorization bill. Okay, sure. That was a very easy response. But there's a lot of people who came forward for this story. And bear in mind, Mitch McConnell's wife, Elaine Chao, had to stand next to President Trump while he hijacked her infrastructure event last week.
And her response in this story is, I stand by both of my men. Sorry, over to you.
She was like Wendy Rhodes from Billions. Like, I can't figure out which one of these guys I have to deal with. Look, they have shared goals. The Republicans...
Okay, that, like, super creeped me out, because if you think, I mean, you know what? No.
Well, yeah, there is
like, the totally perverse, twisted undertones of that show that you've now put on this. Way to go, Jason.
It makes sense for Trump, actually.
Great.
Here's the thing. Like, they don't
seriously? Now there's like latex in my mind. Go, keep going.
They don't get along, but like, look, a real split is like LeBron and Kyrie. Like, that's a split, right? These guys are going to still work together. They're still going to work on the debt ceiling. They're still going to work on voter suppression. The Senate is going to find a way to push through policies that agree with Trump, even if they don't personally like each other.
I thought this was the most significant political development in the overnight news cycle. I mean, when I saw this story, and you zeroed in on the nut graph, like what he is telling people privately, I say this because, you know, I've done a lot of reporting on the business community and Trump, tax reform, et cetera, and I've said to people, like, how must this feel for Elaine Chao, right? When President Trump is going after her husband, and the response I've gotten is, oh, par for the course. This means way more to the media than it does to Elaine or to Mitch or to Donald even. I don't know about that. I mean, this is hitting like Mach 5 speed here,
this is consuming them.
Yeah, look, he can't stand his boss. He can't stand the guy he's got to work with. The man offends him personally, offends him politically. But at the end of the day, if they can get the things done, look, Mitch McConnell's job is to protect the fellow Republicans in the Senate. He's got to protect Hillary. He's got to protect Flake and everything else like that. And if those things can get done, if they can accomplish policy, he can tolerate Trump.
Okay, but what's a Republican? You've got people at last night's rally saying we're done with John McCain. John McCain's got to go. You've got a president who didn't even reference the sailors on USS John McCain. Yes, his father, not John McCain. But what's a Republican? Isn't that the bigger question?
Well, we don't know anymore, because Donald Trump isn't a Republican. His inner circle isn't full of Republicans. It's just a personality cult at this point.
He's a Trumplican.
He's a Trumplican. And we don't know what those, because they change depending on who the last person who walked out of his office is. Mitch McConnell is trying to save what exists as the Republican Party now. I don't know if he's going to be all that successful at it.
Well, and back to him for a second. I mean, there was language in that story to the effect that he's not sure Trump can sort of survive his term. I'm paraphrasing, I forget the exact language, but there was a hint in there that he seems to think it may end early, or at a minimum, it will be a very ineffective administration. So you think about the fact that tax policy is getting pushed off maybe to the 12th of never, tax policy reform, I should say. The Senate Majority Leader has major doubts. I mean, this is
it will
serious.
be a failed administration for Mitch McConnell, because this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunities for Republicans to have this much control and actually get things done. President Trump, was that ever his goal? Because he never got into policy. But what he did get into is Twitter. And I do want to share, just a few minutes ago, the president attacking Arizona Senator Jeff Flake. He tweeted, "Not a fan of Jeff Flake, weak on crime and border." Now, he has already praised Jeff Flake's challenger. What is actually happening here?
Well, it's a president who's trying to attack his own party, since he never really had any loyalty to that party, and he wasn't really much of a Republican to begin with. And that's going to be the real test for 2018. Look, if these guys survive Trump supporting their primary challengers, like I said, it's going to be every man and woman for themselves by sometime next year. But Mitch McConnell has to hold this group together and has to say, look, the only way we save our jobs is not by defending this guy, but by passing policy that our constituents want us to pass.
And yes, it's on him to some degree that there have been no major legislative accomplishments, but you also have to think about the order of operations.
Him being whom?
Mitch McConnell.
Yeah.
But the
was
Trump
it not?
administration decided to go with health care first, right? And that was probably a strategic,
But hold
massive
on. I realize we can say it's Mitch McConnell's failure that health care didn't get through.
That's
but the
partly on him,
president
partly.
Yeah,
did nothing, more than nothing to help him.
No,
Called
that's
it
my
mean.
point. That's
Had
my
the
point.
Secretary of the Interior going after Lisa Murkowski in the
Exactly.
state of Alaska.
Right.
It was only a couple more votes that he needed, and the president was working against him. So why do we continue to say it was all Mitch McConnell?
Yeah, I don't think it was Mitch at all. I mean, look, it's not even like herding cats. They had a plan, they had a policy, but the president's own behavior made him so unpopular, it was impossible. Look, going after health care reform, I think it was one of the smarter things they did, because that would help them with the tax reform later, but it's not their fault. Mitch McConnell couldn't do anything about the fact that Trump ended up absolutely wetting the bed from the very moment he got into the White House and making everything
Can you
impossible.
believe Jason Johnson is defending Mitch McConnell? It's like a whole new world. I got to share. Just a minute ago, though, the president tweeted again, if Republican Senate doesn't get rid of the filibuster rule and go to a simple majority, which the Dems would do, they are just wasting time. President Trump is clearly, listen, he wants control. He hates having to get consensus here. Can he pressure Mitch McConnell via Twitter?
I don't think he can pressure Mitch McConnell
I don't
via
think
Twitter.
so. No.
I think a lot of these senators now, like I said, I thought about this with Corker and Tim Scott last week. If people from states that Trump won by 20 points can come out and criticize him, if Mitch McConnell can let this story come out and not really deny it, they feel safe in their positions. They don't think Trump can stop.
Well, and one of the limitations of Trump is apparently his lack of interest in the finer points of policymaking, right? His lack of interest in sitting down and hashing out in a very nuanced way, you know, how legislation needs to take shape, how it needs to work its way through the process. Instead, he just wants to firebomb somebody on Twitter, create all these distractions, perhaps throw a wrench in what's already in progress, and he's not doing that behind the scenes policy making that prior presidents would have done, or at least their deputies.
And he continues to distract. I mean, besides
it's the distraction and the lack of attention.
Not getting into the policies, those who are actually working on policies, do you think anyone wants to deal with the fact that the president, well, Sheriff Arpaio, he'll be okay. You think they want to deal with that? The answer is no. Coming up, President Trump is expected to head to Reno in the next hour for another speech. We're going to bring that to you live.